Joo-jin's brilliant career was on the brink of collapse, threatened by a hidden act of cruelty and a rival's sabotage. The son of a powerful trustee, Min-joon, believed his privilege could crush her talent without consequence. But he didn't count on a quiet student named Jimin, who had a plan to expose the injustice from the shadows. Now, witness how this twisted friendship was unmasked and how a breathtaking secret not only saved her future but revealed the true meaning of loyalty and love. The halls of the university were a vibrant symphony of ambition, a relentless hum of students racing toward their futures. Yet for Jimin, that symphony often muted itself to a single quiet melody, the solitary presence of Joo-jin. He first noticed her not in a grand lecture hall, but in the subdued light of the campus library. She was a paradox, a beacon of brilliance in their highly competitive chemistry department, her mind a whirlwind of complex theories and elegant solutions. Yet her physical form seemed to be slowly fading. He would catch glimpses of her at the campus cafe, a quiet, almost invisible figure at the corner table. Her hand would linger over a pastry, her gaze fixed on a coffee she couldn't afford. A quick shake of her head, a soft, resigned sigh, and she would walk away, her empty stomach a secret she carried with quiet dignity. As the weeks bled into months, Jimin's concern deepened. The vibrant, focused energy she exuded during lab sessions was a stark contrast to the weary slump of her shoulders outside of them. Rumors were a common currency on campus, and the ones surrounding Joo-jin were particularly painful to hear. Whispers of a family's financial ruin, a sudden reversal of fortune that had left her with nothing but her immense talent. Her pride, he understood, was both her greatest strength and her most devastating weakness. It was a fierce, protective wall she had built around herself, one that shielded her from pity, but also prevented any genuine help from reaching her. Every day he saw the physical toll it was taking. Her face grew paler, the spark in her eyes dimmed by a constant gnawing exhaustion. She was a brilliant flame burning out from lack of fuel, a beautiful star slowly losing its light. Jimin wasn't an ordinary student. He came from a background of stability, a privilege he had never taken for granted. Seeing Yoo-jin's quiet struggle ignited a powerful, empathetic fire within him. He watched her from afar, a silent observer in her solitary world. He saw her in the late hours of the night, hunched over dense textbooks, her concentration so intense it seemed to hold the very air around her. He would see her hands, once so steady and precise in the lab, tremble slightly from fatigue. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that a direct offer of help would be a grave mistake. It would be seen not as an act of kindness, but as an insult to her pride, a violation of her fiercely guarded independence. This was not a simple crush or a fleeting moment of pity. This was a profound connection, born from a shared academic world, and a deep, aching recognition of her immense struggle. He felt a deep, twisting knot of worry in his stomach every time he saw her. He knew she was a hero in her own story, fighting a battle she couldn't afford to lose. The audience, much like Jimin, is drawn into her quiet desperation, her silent battle. We see a vulnerable figure, a brilliant mind on the brink, and we are left with a powerful, overwhelming sense of compassion for her plight.
Jimin's compassion, though deep, was not enough on its own. He knew that a direct intervention would be rejected, her pride a fortress he could not breach with simple gestures. His strategy had to be subtle, a lifeline cast in the dark. He began to operate like a ghost, a silent benefactor. A steaming cup of coffee and a fresh pastry would mysteriously appear on Yoo-jin's desk in the hushed library, perfectly timed to combat her late-night fatigue. A brand-new, expensive textbook she desperately needed but couldn't afford would be left on her chair, the spine still uncracked, with no note, no sender. These acts were not meant to be a grand declaration, but a quiet, anonymous support system, a silent refusal to let her struggle alone. At first, Yoo-jin was bewildered. She would look around, her sharp, analytical eyes scanning the room, searching for an explanation. The gifts felt like a puzzle, a mystery she couldn't solve. Her mind, so accustomed to logical patterns and clear cause and effect, couldn't make sense of this kindness without a face. Her confusion slowly curdled into suspicion. Was this a prank? A cruel joke at her expense? A way for some malicious student to highlight her poverty? She was a woman who had learned to be on guard, and in her world, kindness often came with a price. While she wrestled with the enigma of her secret benefactor, a more visible and far more sinister threat was closing in. His name was Min-joon, and he was the living embodiment of privilege and entitlement. The son of a powerful university trustee, his arrogance was as polished as his expensive shoes. He moved through the academic world with a sense of ownership, seeing people and projects as stepping stones for his own ambition. He was always there, a shadow in the lab, offering help to Joo-jin that felt less like assistance and more like a possessive claim on her work. He saw her as a rival, a threat to his effortless path to the top, and he reveled in her financial struggles, often making thinly veiled remarks about her worn-out clothes or her simple meals. Min-joon's tactics escalated from mockery to sabotage. When the professors weren't looking, he would subtly change chemical ratios in her experiments, mislabel her carefully prepared samples, or delay the delivery of crucial reagents. He worked in the shadows, his actions so small and insidious that Joo-jin began to doubt herself. She thought she was making mistakes, that her mind was failing her under the immense pressure. The culmination of his efforts came during a crucial advanced research project. Her experiments, meticulously planned and executed, inexplicably failed. The results were nonsensical, a chaotic mess that no amount of analysis could fix. Joo-jin stood before her professors, her heart pounding with a sense of failure, her place in the program hanging by a thread. The possibility of being dropped from the project she had sacrificed everything for was a bitter pill to swallow. Meanwhile, the mystery of Jimin's motives only deepened. To Joo-jin and to us, he was still a figure of pure intrigue. Was he a secret admirer, a kind stranger, or was there a deeper, more complicated reason for his actions? We see his quiet, steady determination to help her, a desire that seems to run deeper than simple empathy. But we also see a rival with the power and cruelty to destroy her. The tension builds as Joo-jin finds herself caught between two opposing forces, one seemingly benevolent and the other overtly malevolent, with the true identity of her savior still shrouded in mystery.
The air in the lecture hall was thick with tension, heavy and oppressive. All eyes were on Joo-jin as she stood before the professors, her research presentation a complete and utter failure. Her voice, usually so clear and confident, was now a fragile whisper, cracking with the weight of her disappointment. Tears of frustration welled in her eyes, blurring the faces of the stern faculty members. Behind her, Min-joon sat with a smug, triumphant smirk, a silent predator celebrating his victory. He had won. Her future was in his hands. But then, a flicker of movement from the back of the room broke the static silence. A figure rose, a silent, steady presence that commanded attention. It was Jimin. His gaze was fixed on Joo-jin, a look of quiet resolve on his face. He didn't speak a word. Instead, he walked to the control panel and with a few swift clicks projected a series of images onto the massive screen behind her. The first image was a time-stamped security camera screenshot of the lab. A hooded figure, unmistakable in his gait and posture, was shown tampering with her experiment late at night. The second was a screenshot of text messages, a vile conversation between Min-joon and another student, openly detailing his plan to take her down and seize her project for himself. The third image was a meticulously compiled log of Min-joon's subtle sabotage, altered timestamps on lab equipment, manipulated data files, and mislabeled chemical bottles. The room fell into a stunned silence. Professors leaned forward, their expressions shifting from disbelief to outrage. Joo-jin's head spun. She looked from the screen to Min-joon's now pale, terrified face, and then to Jimin,
whose unwavering gaze met hers across the room. The truth of the sabotage was a gut punch, but the real shock was yet to come. Jimin advanced to the final slide. It was a clear, undeniable image of a bank statement and a transfer receipt. They documented a significant sum of money being transferred to the University Student Assistance Fund, the very same fund Joo-jin had applied to and been rejected from, a fund she now realized was a smokescreen for Min-joon's father's control. But the final line of the receipt, the one that made her heart stop, showed the funds being transferred from Jimin's personal account. The amount was exactly what she had needed to stay in the program. He had anonymously donated the money to the fund, forcing Min-joon's father to approve it to avoid a scandal. This was no random act of kindness. This was a calculated, brilliant move that exposed Min-joon's cruelty and unmasked his father's corrupt influence. The entire narrative of her suffering was turned on its head. The anonymous gifts, the constant concern, and the constant concern, it was all part of a larger plan to save her. The realization hit her with a powerful, disorienting force. The boy she had seen as a mysterious benefactor, then a strange observer, was in fact her silent guardian, her savior. The final slide brought the entire story crashing down, creating a monumental sense of shock that left the entire room, and most importantly, Joo-jin, breathless. The aftermath of the presentation was a controlled chaos. Min-joon, his reputation shattered and his family's influence exposed, was expelled from the university. Joo-jin's research was restored, her name cleared, and the department head, looking deeply ashamed, issued a formal apology. But for Joo-jin, the external vindication felt hollow. Her mind was consumed by a single question, a silent echo in the whirlwind of events. Why? She found her answer in the quiet sanctuary of the campus cafe, the very place where her silent struggle had begun. She sat opposite Jimin, the boy who had been a ghost, a benefactor, and now a savior. The air between them was thick with unsaid things, a tension far different from the one in the lecture hall. Why? The word escaped her lips, soft and trembling. A fragile question loaded with every doubt, every suspicion, every painful moment she had endured. Why did you do all of that? The coffee, the books, the money? And why didn't you just tell me? Jimin met her gaze, his expression gentle, empathetic. He didn't offer a defense, but an explanation. "I saw how hard you were working," he began, his voice a calm counterpoint to her inner turmoil. "I saw that your passion was real and your talent was undeniable. Min-joon, he had everything handed to him. He was a fraud. You were better, a better scientist and a better person." He leaned forward slightly, his tone becoming more intimate. "The anonymous gifts," he explained, "they were a way to help without hurting your pride. I knew you would never accept charity. It wasn't about me getting credit. It was about you getting what you deserved. And I couldn't tell you about Min-joon's sabotage because I had to gather all the evidence first. If he had known I was onto him, he would have found a way to stop me, or worse, make you suffer more." The words were a cascade of honesty, each one a stone removed from the crushing weight she had been carrying. He went on to explain the complex web of connections between their families, how his own privilege had ironically given him the means to expose Min-joon's corruption from the inside. His motivation was not personal gain, but a genuine, deeply felt desire for justice. He had been a quiet observer, a silent knight, gathering his armor while she fought her battle alone. As Jimin spoke, the anger, the suspicion, the years of quiet despair that had become her constant companions began to dissolve. The fortress of pride she had built around herself finally crumbled, not from an attack, but from the simple, profound honesty of his words. A new sensation, unfamiliar and intoxicating, began to bloom in her chest. It was the powerful, soul-deep feeling of relief. She was no longer alone, no longer fighting a phantom enemy. The battle was over, and the one person who had truly seen her, who had truly understood her struggle, was sitting right in front of her.
Joo-jin's world, once a landscape of cold logic and grinding hardship, was suddenly illuminated by a new truth. In the aftermath of Jimin's revelations, she no longer saw a fellow student, but a quiet, powerful force for good. He wasn't just a peer in the lab, he was a silent guardian, a protector who had stood watch over her when she was at her most vulnerable. The pieces of the puzzle she had so desperately tried to solve, the anonymous gifts, his quiet presence, the way he seemed to be everywhere she was, now clicked into place with stunning clarity. She remembered the late nights in the library, the way he would work in the same corner, seemingly absorbed in his own studies. She had dismissed it as a coincidence, or even found it slightly unnerving. Now she understood he was keeping an eye on her, a silent sentinel ensuring her safety. The moments she had perceived as strange or even meddlesome were in fact acts of incredible foresight and care. He wasn't a stalker, he was an advocate. This realization sparked a fire in her, a feeling far more profound than gratitude. She was filled with an overwhelming admiration for him. She admired his brilliant mind, the same one that solved complex chemical equations, but which had also meticulously planned her rescue. His methodical gathering of evidence, the way he had anticipated Min-joon's every move, the strategic reveal that not only saved her but also exposed a network of corruption, it was a masterclass in quiet, powerful action. But it was more than just his intellect. She admired his character. He had taken a colossal risk, putting his own academic standing and reputation on the line to stand up for what was right. In a world where people so often look the other way, he had chosen to get involved. His actions were not for personal gain or glory. They were born from a deep-seated sense of justice and a quiet, unwavering compassion. He was the kind of person who did the right thing, even when it was thankless, difficult, and dangerous. The feelings she had once held for him, confusion, suspicion, then a hesitant relief, transformed. She saw him as a man of incredible integrity, a rare soul who possessed both the courage to fight a powerful enemy and the humility to do it from the shadows. The wall of pride she had built around herself to protect her from the world had been dismantled not by force, but by the quiet power of his sincerity. As she looked at him, a new, tender emotion began to blossom in her heart, a feeling that went beyond mere admiration. It was something deeper, more significant, and far more beautiful. It was the undeniable dawning of love. The final scene found Joo-jin not in the sterile, high-pressure environment of the lab, but in the peaceful quiet of the university library. Her steps were tentative as she moved through the towering aisles of books, her heart pounding a rhythm that felt entirely new. She saw him there, at a secluded desk, absorbed in a book just as she had been so many times before. He looked at ease, a stark contrast to the turbulent emotions that had once consumed him. She took a seat next to him, the soft rustle of her clothes the only sound that broke the silence. He looked up, his face breaking into a gentle, knowing smile. The air between them, once filled with unspoken questions and quiet observations, was now charged with a powerful, beautiful certainty. "I came to find you," she began, her voice soft but steady. I have so many things to thank you for." He shook his head, the smile still on his lips. "You don't have to thank me for anything, Joo-jin." "Yes, I do," she insisted, her gaze unwavering. "You saved my research, my career, and my dignity. You showed me that people can be good, that a kind heart exists even in the most cynical places. But more than that," she paused, taking a deep, fortifying breath, "you showed me what a true friend looks like." He watched her, his eyes warm and patient, waiting for her to continue. The courage she had used to stand up to Min-joon, to face her own humiliation, now found a new purpose. "And I think," she whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs, I think I'm falling in love with that friend." A beautiful, uninhibited smile spread across Jimin's face. It was not a surprised smile, but one of profound relief and joy. He reached across the table, his hand gently finding hers, his fingers intertwining with hers in a silent promise. "I was hoping you would say that," he said softly, his thumb caressing the back of her hand. Their relationship, born not from a fleeting glance or a contrived meeting, but from a web of deceit and a secret act of kindness, was now built on an unshakable foundation of trust and mutual respect. They were no longer just two students in the same department. They were two souls who had found each other through a shared challenge, a silent battle, and a profound act of compassion. Their bond was deeper and stronger for it, a testament to the fact that genuine connection often blossoms from the most unexpected places. The audience is left with a profound sense of admiration, not just for their resilience, but for the powerful, unexpected love story that unfolded from a mystery and a simple, selfless act of compassion.